Hello, everyone. There are moments in life when God will not tell you to move. He will not tell you to speak. He will not even tell you to fight.
He will whisper, focus on yourself and stay silent. Because in that stillness,
He is doing more than you could ever do with your words, your reactions, or your defenses. You see, silence is not weakness.
Silence is spiritual strategy. When God tells you to be quiet, it means He's about to prove something without your help. When God says, focus on yourself, He's preparing to build a version of you that cannot be shaken by storms, criticism, or betrayal.
There are times when your growth demands isolation. You may think people are walking away from you, but in reality, God is pulling you away from noise so you can hear His voice clearly. He will close certain doors, not because He's punishing you, but because He's protecting your focus. He knows that if you keep listening to every opinion, every rumor, every distraction, you'll miss His instruction. God doesn't always want you to fight battles publicly. Some wars are won in silence on your knees in prayer. Some victories are hidden until your transformation becomes too visible to deny. When God says, focus on yourself, it means He wants you to rediscover your identity in Him. You have been pouring into others, explaining yourself, defending your name, trying to prove your worth. And you've forgotten the one thing that truly matters, your relationship with Him. You've been explaining your purpose to people who were never assigned to understand it. You've been arguing with those who cannot see your vision because they were never given the lens to see it. So now, heaven is saying, be quiet. Stop explaining. Stop trying to convince anyone. Just build. Focus on yourself doesn't mean selfishness. It means realignment. It means placing your attention back on your development, your calling, your purity, your discipline, your mental peace. Sometimes God cannot elevate you until you stop being distracted by the noise of others. The people around you may think you're becoming distant, cold, or proud. But what they don't know is that you're under divine construction. You're being rebuilt in silence. You're being equipped in secret. You're being prepared for something that eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. When God is working on your destiny, He'll often hide you. Think about Joseph. He was betrayed, sold, and forgotten. But in that isolation, God was forming a leader. Think about David, anointed as king, yet sent back to the field with sheep. Why? Because before God gives you a throne, He gives you silence. Before God gives you influence, He gives you solitude. Because the noise of people can corrupt what God is trying to purify inside you. He needs your attention. He needs your ears. He needs your spirit tuned to His frequency. There's a season when you must learn to shut your mouth and strengthen your mind. Stop announcing every move. Stop explaining every struggle. Stop posting every pain. The world doesn't need to see your process. They will see your result. When God said, stay silent, He wasn't silencing your purpose. He was silencing your distractions. Because too many of you have been talking about things you should have been praying about. You've been venting instead of visioning. You've been complaining instead of creating. You've been seeking validation instead of revelation. This is why silence is not absence. It's alignment. When you go quiet, heaven gets louder. When you stop talking, your spirit starts hearing. When you focus on yourself, you discover the things that were buried under noise, your peace, your power, your potential. God is saying, I cannot show you what's inside you until you stop trying to impress what's outside you. You have been proving yourself to people who don't even know what God is building in you. Stop explaining the blueprint to those who were never called to build with you. There are seasons when your silence will offend others. They will say, you've changed. Yes, you have. Because growth requires separation. People expect you to keep being available for drama, arguments, and gossip. But when God puts you in a season of focus, you lose appetite for nonsense. You can't be focused on purpose and still be addicted to people's opinions. You can't be filled with destiny and still feed on distractions. God will disconnect you so He can detox you. He'll pull you from conversations that poison your confidence. He'll silence your surroundings so your inner voice can speak again. Focus on yourself means God wants you to audit your life. Who are you when no one is watching? What thoughts are you feeding? What habits are shaping you? What words are you repeating to yourself every day? Because sometimes the enemy is not attacking you from outside. He's attacking you from within through laziness, doubt, insecurity, comparison. God is saying, work on that. Fix that. Focus there. Before you can conquer anything in the world, you must first conquer yourself. Before you can lead others, you must master discipline, humility, and spiritual awareness. When you focus on yourself in God's presence, you start seeing areas that need healing. Maybe it's not people that broke you. It's what you believed about yourself. Maybe it's not the situation that destroyed your peace. It's your attachment to control. Maybe it's not rejection that hurt you. It's the expectation that people should understand your calling. God wants you to go deep within because you cannot transform what you refuse to face. He will strip you from the applause so he can teach you how to be fulfilled without it. He will remove your audience so you can rediscover your authenticity. When God calls you into silence, it's not punishment, it's preparation. The same way an arrow must be pulled backward before it is released forward, God will pull you into quietness before launching you into greatness. The pressure you feel right now is not a sign of defeat, it's the stretching of destiny. He's shaping your character. He's testing your patience. He's refining your vision. Because when you step out again, you won't be the same. You'll speak less but carry more authority. You'll move quietly but impact deeply. Some of you are frustrated because God has silenced your circle. Nobody calls, nobody checks in, nobody supports you. But that's not rejection, that's redirection. He's teaching you to depend on him. He's teaching you that peace is found in his presence, not in people's approval. Every time you want to speak out of frustration, he says, "Be still, I'm working." Every time you want to defend yourself, he says, "Be silent, I'll fight for you." Every time you want to explain your pain, he says, "Focus, you're growing." And that's the beauty of divine silence. You begin to realize that not every response requires your energy. Not every argument deserves your attention. Not every betrayal needs an explanation. Sometimes the best answer is elevation. While they're talking about you, keep growing. While they're doubting you, keep building. While they're watching you, keep transforming. Because soon your growth will speak louder than your words ever could. When God says focus on yourself, he's not telling you to become self-centered. He's telling you to become self-aware, to know your triggers, your weaknesses, your strengths, your divine timing, to know what drains you and what feeds you, to know when to step back and when to step forward. Because too many of you are trying to save others while you are bleeding yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot guide others if you are lost in distraction. God is saying, heal first, grow first, mature first. Focus on yourself means mind your thoughts. What are you meditating on? Because your thoughts create your atmosphere. If your mind is cluttered with worry, your spirit cannot hear direction. Silence is not just about closing your mouth. It's about quieting your mind. To hear God's instruction, you must lower the volume of your fears. To receive divine clarity, you must mute the noise of opinions. Silence is the womb of revelation. In the quiet, you start to see what really matters. You realize that not everyone who left was a loss. You realize that not every delay is a denial. You realize that peace is more valuable than attention. God is training you to master emotional discipline. When you stay silent in moments when your flesh wants to react, you are proving that you trust him. You're saying, God, I could speak, but I choose to let you speak through my results. You're saying, I could argue, but I'd rather focus on building what you told me. That's spiritual maturity. That's kingdom thinking. Because real power doesn't shout, it manifests. Real authority doesn't argue, it produces. And that's why God will often make you invisible to those who once praised you. He will hide you until your roots grow deep enough to handle the weight of your next level. Some people see silence as stagnation, but in the spirit, silence is gestation. Something is forming. Something is growing. You may not see it yet, but soon you'll understand why you had to be quiet. Every silent season carries a hidden instruction, a divine download, a personal revelation. God's command to focus on yourself and stay silent is an invitation to mastery. To master your emotions, your reactions, your priorities. It's a call to internal renovation. Because when he rebuilds your inside, your outside will naturally change. You won't chase people, you'll attract purpose. You won't beg for attention, you'll carry presence. You won't speak to prove, you'll speak to transform. In this season, learn to be okay with not explaining everything. Learn to be okay with being misunderstood. Learn to be okay with silence. Because when God finishes what he's doing in you, the same people who doubted you will say, I always knew you'd make it. But you'll know the truth. You made it because you obeyed the whisper, focus on yourself. Stay silent. Your silence is your seed. Your focus is your fertilizer. And when the time comes, the harvest will speak for itself. There comes a moment in your walk with God when he stops explaining and starts testing. you begin to pray, Lord, why is nothing happening? And he replies not with answers, but with silence. That silence isn't a rejection, it's an examination. It's his way of saying, I've already spoken. Now I want to see if you can stay focused on what I said without being distracted by what you see. When God says, focus on yourself and stay silent, he is pulling you into spiritual training that separates the talkers from the transformers. You see, silence is the gym of the spirit. That's where your self-control is exercised. That's where your character is shaped. That's where your pride dies and your patience grows. Everyone wants to be used by God, but very few are willing to go through the process of being refined in silence. Everybody loves the spotlight, but not everyone can handle the shadow. Yet the truth is, every great calling is born in obscurity. Every divine assignment begins in a hidden place where no one claps, no one notices, and no one encourages. But heaven does. When God tells you to focus on yourself, it's because he's tired of seeing you distracted by temporary things. He's saying, stop looking at their blessings and start building your discipline. Stop reacting to their opinions and start renewing your mind. Because comparison will make you forget your assignment. You cannot fulfill your purpose while constantly watching someone else's journey. Every time you look at what others are doing, you delay what God is trying to do in you. You are not in competition. You are in preparation. That's why God silences your surroundings. He'll let people misunderstand you. He'll let them misjudge you. He'll let them speak against you. And he'll tell you, don't say a word. Because every time you defend yourself, you step off the altar of surrender. Every time you try to prove your innocence, you interfere with divine justice. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them think what they want. God's vindication doesn't come through your explanations. It comes through your elevation. In the kingdom, silence is a weapon, because while others waste energy gossiping, criticizing, and complaining, you're investing energy in becoming. Every minute you stay silent, you're multiplying your power. Every time you refuse to respond, you're feeding your focus. Every time you walk away from an argument, you're walking toward your anointing. God doesn't bless noise. He blesses obedience. And obedience often looks like saying nothing while your faith says everything. You must learn to discern the difference between when to speak and when to stay silent. There are moments when God will use your voice to declare truth. But there are also moments when he will use your silence to display strength. Because sometimes words only make things worse. Sometimes explanations make you smaller. Sometimes the best sermon is your self-control. The greatest revenge is transformation. The loudest clapback is success. When you stay silent, you allow God to speak through outcomes instead of arguments. You stop fighting battles that were never assigned to you. You stop explaining what only time will reveal. You stop reacting to what doesn't deserve your response. That's how kings think. That's how queens think. You cannot operate at a royal level while acting like a slave to opinions. You can't rule over your destiny while being ruled by your emotions. God said, focus on yourself. Why? Because he's trying to prepare you for the next level of responsibility. You cannot lead if you are easily distracted. You cannot be trusted with influence if your focus shifts with every criticism. The next dimension of your calling requires emotional stability, and that stability comes from silence. Do you remember when Jesus was accused, mocked, and questioned by Pilate? Scripture says, he answered him nothing. That silence was not weakness, it was wisdom. Because when truth stands before lies, it doesn't need to argue. When purpose faces confusion, it doesn't need to explain. When destiny encounters doubt, it simply keeps walking. That's what God is teaching you. Stop reacting to noise and start walking in purpose. When God says, stay silent, it's because he's building your discernment. Not every opportunity is divine. Not every voice is prophetic. Not every door is from him. And if you keep talking, you'll miss his whispers. Some of you are praying, God, speak to me, while your life is too loud for him to answer. You're scrolling, comparing, explaining, proving, reacting. And he's saying, be still, turn it off, step away, focus on yourself. It's in that stillness that you begin to see clearly. You start to notice the patterns that kept you stuck. You start recognizing who really supports you and who just watches you. You start seeing that not every connection is covenant and not every applause is approval. The silence becomes sacred because that's where truth is exposed. Focusing on yourself also means fixing the parts of you that God can't bless yet. You cannot pray for elevation while keeping the habits that delay it. You cannot ask for clarity while tolerating confusion. God will not upgrade what you refuse to update. That's why he isolates you to perform spiritual surgery. He removes your dependency on others. He detoxes your mind from negativity. He reprograms your confidence from I can't to I am equipped. He trains you to stop chasing validation and start living from revelation. You see, silence reveals your strength, but it also exposes your weakness. Because when there's no one to impress, your real motives appear. When there's no noise to distract, your true thoughts surface. That's when God begins his deepest work. He'll ask you questions like, why are you really doing this? Who are you trying to prove wrong? What pain are you still carrying? Because God cannot heal what you hide. And in silence, there is nowhere to hide. Focus on yourself is not about isolation for pride. It's about purification for purpose. God doesn't want you to shut everyone out forever. He just wants you to learn to hear him first. Because when you know who you are, you stop needing others to confirm it. When you're secure in your assignment, you stop chasing alignment with everyone else. When you're rooted in his presence, you stop being shaken by people's absence. There's a reason why eagles fly alone. They are not antisocial, they are intentional. They understand that altitude requires solitude. You cannot soar with eagles while trying to fit in with pigeons. You cannot expect heavenly insight while entertaining earthly noise. You must learn to separate for elevation. You must become comfortable with being misunderstood for a season so that you can be effective for a lifetime. When God silences you, he is sanctifying your vision. He is teaching you to see with spiritual eyes, not emotional ones. You start seeing rejection as redirection. You start seeing delays as development. You start seeing silence as strategy. Everything that used to frustrate you now fuels you. Because you realize he was never ignoring you. He was instructing you in a language called stillness. The hardest part about focusing on yourself is resisting the urge to prove yourself. You want to show them you're right. You want to explain your growth. You want to justify your silence. But God will say, no, let them think whatever they want. I'm doing something they can't see. That's when you learn the true meaning of peace. When you stop explaining your purpose to those who have no revelation of it. And while you're silent, something supernatural happens. Your energy shifts. Your prayers become deeper. Your discernment becomes sharper. Your spirit becomes sensitive to divine timing. You start hearing instructions that were drowned by distractions before. You begin to understand why the separation was necessary. Because God had to silence the wrong voices so you could finally recognize his. In silence, you start to rebuild your inner temple. You clean out old fears, toxic attachments, and expired beliefs. You let go of the desire to be liked and embrace the desire to be led. You stop asking, who's supporting me? And start asking, who's shaping me? Because real focus isn't about cutting people off. It's about cutting off what keeps you from growing. It's about cutting off anxiety, laziness, insecurity, procrastination. It's about learning to master your emotions before they master you. God's instruction to focus on yourself and stay silent is not punishment. It's promotion in disguise. He's preparing you to walk in rooms where you can't afford to be reactive. He's preparing you for blessings that require maturity, not noise. Because there are doors that only open for those who learn discipline in silence. There are levels that only manifest for those who learn to worship instead of worry. There are opportunities that only appear when your energy is no longer scattered on meaningless battles. So if you're in a silent season right now, don't rush out of it. Don't force God to end your training early. Stay focused. Build yourself. Learn yourself. Strengthen your faith, because the silence that feels painful today will become the platform that sustains your success tomorrow. The same people who questioned your quietness will soon be asking for your wisdom. God is saying, let me finish what I started. Don't react. Don't explain. Don't prove. Just focus. Because when he finally reveals you, you won't need to say a thing. Your peace will speak. Your growth will speak. Your fruit will speak. Your silence will echo louder than any speech ever could. There is a sacred moment when you finally realize that not every battle requires your voice, and not every season needs your presence. There comes a time when you stop running after explanations and start walking in revelation. That's the moment when God looks at you and says, now you understand why I told you to focus on yourself and stay silent. Because silence is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of mastery. When you are quiet, it doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening, but under divine control. You see, we live in a world addicted to noise. Everyone wants to speak. Everyone wants to prove, everyone wants to post. But when heaven marks you for greatness, God removes your appetite for attention. He disconnects you from applause so that your heart can be purified from the need for validation. Because the one who constantly needs to be seen cannot be trusted with the secrets of the unseen. God works with those who can carry revelation quietly, who can be anointed in private and not rush to announce it. When God says, focus on yourself, He's not telling you to abandon people, He's telling you to grow beyond them. Some people are not evil, they're just expired. They belong to a chapter you've already read. But you keep rereading the same chapter, trying to understand why it no longer inspires you. God is saying, you've already learned the lesson. Now move forward. There's a time when you must stop trying to fit where you've outgrown. And silence is often the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. God's silence in your life doesn't mean absence. It means transition. You're shifting dimensions. He's upgrading your identity. You're no longer who you used to be, but not yet who you're becoming. That's why things feel confusing, uncertain, or heavy, because growth always feels like breaking before it feels like birthing. Silence is the sound of transformation. When a seed is planted, it disappears, but that disappearance is not death, it's development. You may feel buried, but you're not buried, you're being planted. And that's what God wants you to understand. He hides you not to punish you, but to prepare you. The same way a diamond is hidden in the earth before it's discovered, God hides your purpose before He displays it. He covers your process because some people cannot handle your becoming. If He revealed you too soon, your environment would destroy what He's still forming. So instead, He says, stay quiet. Trust me. Focus on the roots, not the recognition. When God says, stay silent, it's because He's protecting your development. The voice that argues cannot listen. The mind that reacts cannot receive. Silence teaches you discipline, the ability to respond only when God commands. Because if you speak from emotion, you'll lose what God is building through instruction. Some of you are one reaction away from delaying your next season. That's why God is holding your tongue. He's teaching you that your silence carries more power than your shouting ever will. When you focus on yourself, you begin to see how much of your energy was wasted trying to fix what God never asked you to fix. You were trying to heal people who refused to change, trying to carry people who were never meant to come with you, trying to convince people who had already made up their minds. God said, enough. It's time to focus on what I told you to do, because you cannot save others if you're drowning in distractions. You cannot lift others if you haven't learned how to stand. Sometimes obedience will make you look selfish to those who don't understand your calling. People will say, you've changed. You don't talk like you used to. You don't hang around like before, and you want to explain yourself, but don't. God told you to stay silent for a reason, because explanation invites misunderstanding, but silence protects direction. Everyone doesn't deserve access to your process. Everyone doesn't have the maturity to hear what God is doing in you. That's why He isolates you. He wants to be your only voice. You have to understand that silence is the language of strength. Weak people argue. Strong people observe. Mature people wait. There's power in watching without reacting. Because when you stop trying to prove your worth, you start living from it. You stop performing for approval and start operating from purpose. Silence teaches you that not everything that demands a response deserves one. You are not obligated to defend yourself when God has already declared your identity. And here's the mystery: while you're silent, heaven is loud. While you're focusing on yourself, God is focusing on your destiny. While you're hidden, He's working in the background, aligning opportunities, preparing people, setting the stage. You may feel forgotten, but heaven never forgets obedience. You may feel invisible, but your preparation is visible to God. Every moment you stay focused, every time you choose silence over argument, every time you stay consistent in private, He's recording it. Because when He promotes you, it won't be random. It will be the result of every silent decision you made in faith. The enemy hates your silence because it confuses him. He expects you to react. He wants you to post, rant, and prove. But when you stay quiet, you rob him of strategy. When you refuse to speak, he can't predict your next move. Silence becomes your spiritual camouflage. It hides your progress from the enemy's radar. It blinds the jealous and silences the mockers. Because people can't attack what they can't understand, and they can't sabotage what they can't see. When God said, focus on yourself, He meant it. Stop checking who unfollowed you. Stop replaying what they said. Stop analyzing every rejection. Those things were never meant to feed your focus. You have an assignment, you have a destiny, and your energy is the currency of your future. You cannot spend it on small things. Stop giving emotional discounts to people who don't value your peace. Your silence is your protection. Your focus is your weapon. There's a time to speak, but there's also a time to let your transformation speak for itself. Let your growth preach. Let your peace testify. Let your results explain what your words never could. Because soon, the same people who ignored you will have to acknowledge you. Not because you shouted, but because you shined. That's what silence does. It turns pain into power and opposition into opportunity. When you start focusing on yourself, God will start exposing things inside you that you didn't even know were broken. He'll show you hidden pride, buried trauma, and unhealed places. And at first, it will hurt. But healing always hurts before it helps. He's not trying to shame you. He's trying to shape you. Because he cannot elevate what is unstable. He cannot bless what is still bitter. He cannot release what is still unready. That's why this season feels uncomfortable. You're shedding your old skin. You're outgrowing old attitudes. You're releasing the urge to prove, the addiction to approval, the obsession with being understood. You're learning to be content with being chosen, even if you're not celebrated. You're learning to find comfort in solitude because you've realized that solitude is not loneliness. It's leadership training. This is the divine paradox. God hides his greatest treasures in silence. The womb is silent, but life is forming. The soil is silent, but seeds are growing. The midnight is silent, but the dawn is preparing to break. So if you feel surrounded by silence, don't panic. It means something sacred is in progress. Heaven is constructing something inside you that will change everything outside you. You don't owe the world an explanation for your silence. You owe yourself the discipline to protect your peace. Stop apologizing for being unavailable. Stop explaining your focus. Stop trying to make others comfortable with your boundaries. Growth is not a group activity. Destiny is not a democracy. What God is doing in you is personal, and sometimes it's painful, but it's always purposeful. Focus on yourself doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start prioritizing. You start realizing that your assignment is not to please people. It's to please God. You start realizing that not every invitation is divine, and not every opportunity is worth your peace. You start protecting your time, your thoughts, and your energy because you understand that anything that costs your peace is too expensive for your destiny. And as you walk deeper into this season, your silence will become your sanctuary. You'll find that peace is louder than approval, that prayer is stronger than response, and that purpose is greater than popularity. You'll stop chasing conversations and start cultivating communion. You'll stop trying to be seen and start focusing on being sent. You'll stop asking for signs and start trusting his silence. So if God has quieted your life, take it as a compliment. He's not ignoring you. He's investing in you. He's teaching you to stand alone, to think clearly, to hear him purely. You're not falling behind, you're being refined. You're not being forgotten, you're being focused. And one day when he finally says, now speak, your voice will carry power, your words will carry weight, and your silence will have built a foundation that no storm can shake. There will always come a moment in your journey when everything inside you wants to scream. But heaven says, stay silent. When everything around you demands reaction, but the Spirit whispers, focus. This is not the silence of fear. It is the silence of faith. It is not the silence of weakness. It is the silence of wisdom. God says, I am training you for the crown, but you cannot wear it with a noisy mind. You cannot walk in authority if you are still addicted to attention. You cannot carry peace if your soul still chases approval. That's why he said, focus on yourself and stay silent, because focus is your filter. It separates what matters from what doesn't. And silence is your strength. It guards what God is doing inside you from premature exposure. There are things that cannot grow in noise. There are revelations that cannot be born in crowds. There are miracles that only manifest in solitude. When you are still, you start hearing the symphony of heaven. You start realizing that silence is not empty. It is full of divine activity. When God calls you into silence, he is inviting you into partnership. He's saying, let me handle the talking while you handle the becoming. He's saying, let me defend you while you develop, because your energy must be directed toward purpose, not toward proving. You don't need to waste your words explaining your process to those who are not assigned to understand it. Every time you try to justify what God is doing in you, you dilute its power. Let your growth speak for itself. You see, silence is not only about keeping quiet externally, it's about finding calm internally. Because there are people who are quiet in public but loud in their thoughts. Their minds never stop arguing, proving, defending, comparing. But when God says, stay silent, he means peace in your heart, not just quiet on your lips. He means quiet the mental storms, silence the inner critic, and stop replaying the past. He wants you to find stillness inside so you can carry strength outside. When you focus on yourself, you begin to notice the invisible battles that have been draining you, the habits that waste your time, the thoughts that steal your energy, the people who disturb your peace. God opens your eyes to the hidden leaks in your life. You begin to repair what was broken, restore what was lost, and rebuild what was neglected. That's what divine focus does. It reorders your priorities until peace becomes more important than popularity and character becomes more valuable than comfort. There's a reason why Jesus often withdrew to lonely places to pray. He understood that power flows from privacy. Every public miracle he performed was first birthed in private prayer. Every loud victory was born in silent communion. That's the pattern of divine success. Silence before significance. God hides you so he can fill you. He silences you so he can strengthen you. And when the time is right, he will send you out, not as a noisy beginner, but as a disciplined warrior. When you stay silent long enough, something shifts inside you. You begin to care less about being understood and more about understanding God. You begin to desire less attention and more anointing. You start realizing that your silence is not a pause, it's preparation. And preparation is never wasted time. It's the space where God rebuilds your confidence, refines your faith, and redefines your identity. People may not understand what you're doing right now. They'll say you've changed. They'll call you distant. They'll mislabel your silence. Let them. You're not being rude. You're being restored. You're not being cold. You're being called. You're not avoiding people. You're avoiding distractions. The same people who criticize your silence today will soon need the wisdom it produced. When you focus on yourself, you start seeing how every delay had divine purpose. You start recognizing that God's silence was never abandonment, it was alignment. You realize that while you were hidden, he was healing you. While you were quiet, he was qualifying you. While you were still, he was setting up everything for your reveal. Because God never hides what he doesn't plan to use. And when he finally says, now speak, your voice will carry the authority of experience. It will carry the oil of obedience. It will carry the weight of silence. Because silence refines your message. It turns pain into prophecy, wounds into wisdom, and battles into boldness. The words that will come out of your mouth after this season will not just inform, they will transform. You will speak differently because you have learned differently. There is a holy power in being misunderstood but still peaceful. There is divine strength in being silent while heaven fights for you. Because God never forgets the humble. Every time you stayed silent instead of defending yourself, he wrote it down. Every time you focused instead of reacting, he took notice. Every time you obeyed quietly, he prepared a public reward. Some of you are about to walk into the season where your silence will make noise. The very people who doubted you will have to watch you rise. The same environment that tried to break you will witness your breakthrough. You won't need to shout. You'll just show up and your peace will preach. Because when God finally reveals what he's been building in silence, no one will be able to deny it. God is saying, this is why I told you to focus. This is why I told you to stay silent. Because if you had reacted, you would have ruined it. If you had spoken, you would have spoiled it. But because you trusted me, I'm about to reveal you in ways you never imagined. The silence that felt like a prison is becoming your platform. The isolation that felt painful is becoming your elevation. So don't rush this process. Don't break the silence before the sound is ready. Stay focused. Keep working. Keep praying. Keep building quietly. Because there's a moment coming when God will make noise for you. There's a moment coming when everything that was hidden will be unveiled. The tables will turn. The story will shift. The voices that mocked you will be silenced by your manifestation. And when that moment comes, you will not need to say, I told you so. You'll simply smile because you'll know that God told you, focus on yourself and stay silent. You'll understand that every lonely night, every unspoken tear, every quiet prayer was part of the divine plan. You'll realize that the silence wasn't the end. It was the seed. And that seed has finally broken through the soil. Now, as you step out of this silent season, don't lose the wisdom you gained in it. Speak with discernment, move with purpose, act with grace. Remember that silence built your strength, so never trade that peace for noise again. Guard it, protect it, live from it, because your silence gave birth to clarity and your focus gave birth to destiny. And when people ask you how you made it, don't give them a long explanation. Just say, I stayed silent, I focused, and God did the rest. Ending so now, child of purpose, hear this final whisper from heaven. You don't need to prove yourself when you are chosen. You don't need to shout when you are sure. You don't need to fight when you are favored. Just focus on yourself, stay silent, and watch what God does next, because the same silence that hid you will be the silence that reveals you. The same focus that isolated you will be the focus that elevates you. And when the world finally sees what God formed in your quiet season, they won't hear noise, they'll witness glory.